Good afternoon. As you know, a week ago today, we agreed to terms with Luke Walton as the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Last night, Luke signed a contract with the Lakers that would provide that he coaches for the Lakers once the Golden State season comes to a close. So we're hoping for Luke that he continues to play until mid-June. Certainly, we'd also like him here as soon as possible. But good luck to Luke. Good luck to the Golden State Warriors. And I'd also like to publicly thank the Golden State Warriors for allowing us to hire Luke and interview Luke, certainly during a very important time of the season for them.
Mitch, we all know that Luke was very highly thought of. Didn't have a lot of head coaching experience, but he was on the top of just about everyone's list. How were you able to pull this thing off so fast? And at the other end of the spectrum, where did it go wrong with Byron?
Well, it didn't go wrong with Byron, and there's no one thing that we can point to. The expression, it's decision to go in another direction is overused. But I declined to go into great detail. Byron did a wonderful job under very adverse circumstances the last 2 years. I know he wasn't expecting, not to coach our team next year, and I know he was hoping that he would coach. But, that's the business. And when I spoke to Byron, we kind of both looked at each other and said we've both been around long enough to know that this happens. So I thank Byron publicly, and hopefully he'll be a part of the Lakers for a long, long time in any way possible. Regarding Luke, we did have several interviews set up. Luke was our first interview. It was also, to my understanding, the first interview for Luke. And with the openings in the NBA at that time, and then openings that we thought might come about, once we finished the interview, we decided quickly that he was our first choice. Why wait? Just get it done. And that's what we did.
What would you say is the most impression you got from Luke besides the record that he had this season with the Warriors?
Well, there's a lot of positives, as to why we would choose Luke. He's, believe it or not, the fact that he doesn't really have a lot of head coaching experience is a positive. We get to work with somebody who's, learning on the fly. We've had experience with coaches like that in the past. In fact, I think Pat Riley was our last 36-year-old coach, and he did pretty good. But we're happy to have Luke. For a lot of different reasons. We think he's a good bet going forward. As you mentioned, he doesn't have a lot of head coaching experience, but he has coaching experience, and we think he's going to get better year to year.
Rick, what did Luke say or do in that interview that impressed you guys so much that you went so fast that you get him hired?
Well, we didn't have to, spend a lot of time getting to know Luke. As a player, we drafted Luke. We signed him to 2 or 3 contracts. We traded him to Cleveland, which to this day he hasn't forgiven us for. Then when he came back, he worked with us on our D-League team for 1 year. So we didn't have to spend a lot of time getting to know him. We know him as a person. Jimmy and I spent 6 or 7 hours, basically talking basketball. We had a lot of questions. Obviously, what kind of offense, what kind of defense, how do you see, our team playing, what do you think of our players, what do we need, a lot of what-if scenarios, and he was well thought out, he was prepared, had an offensive and defensive playbook, and he actually had another pamphlet that he handed out with his picture on the front of it, and with his name underneath it, Luke Walton. And I looked at it and I said, "Really, Luke?" And he said, "Oh, this is something my agent made me do."
Do you have an idea of when the staff will be put together? Will that have to wait until after?
No, we hope to get the staff as you know, there's there's three coaches on the bench, and then there's behind the bench. We'd like to get as much of the coaches, for the front of the bench as soon as possible, and it is something we're working on presently.
How much input will Luke have into the acquiring of free agents and in the draft? And then also, do you expect him to try to bring that Golden State kind of offense down here?
Luke does intend to play up-tempo, fast-paced basketball, very similar to what Golden State does. We don't have the players that Golden State has right now. And in this league, it's a player-oriented league. You're only going to be as good as your players are, and that falls on, the basketball department to provide him better players going forward. He does like the players we have, and he thinks they can play a similar style of basketball that's really prevalent, in the NBA right now. It's exciting, it's fun to watch, and there's a high skill level.
Just on the staff, is that something we would be able to have input in while he's still working for Warriors in terms of filling out this position?
Excuse me, say it again, please.
To filling out this front of the bench staff,
Uh-huh.
bench staff, how much input can Luke have on that while he's still working?
Well, he's had the opportunity, since his head coaching debut with the Warriors back months ago. There's been a lot of talk about the offseason and would he get a head coaching job. And believe it or not, I think at that point it's natural to think, what if? And if I did, who would I like to have sitting next to me? So I don't think it's something that he just started talking about or thinking about a week ago. I think in his mind he's developed relationships, in his 12 to 14-year career, and some of the coaches may be on other teams, in which case they would not be available. Some of them may be unemployed, in which case it'd be easier to get them. But I think he does have a good idea of what he wants. Whether we can get the people, I don't know.
From your standpoint, how much input can you provide him for that staff in terms of if he wants people, do you push him a certain way in terms of certain needs that you see that would benefit him and coming in as a new head coach?
Well, in the interview we talked about it, and we talked about what we thought, would be a good move for him in terms of complementing, who he is on the bench. So we had good conversations. Our agreement provides that, we both have input. Clearly, at the end of the day, the organization does have the final say. It would never get to that point. Luke is very knowledgeable, very eager to talk about possibilities, and I'd be surprised if we couldn't agree on a good coaching staff.
Mitch, what was your conversation with Luke like about trying to build a foundation in the long term? I mean, obviously, his predecessors have had relatively short ropes in terms of turning things around. What's the long view with him?
Well, it's different today. For 20 years we had a player on this team and on this court, on my whiteboard and on every box score that we've become dependent upon and very familiar with. Of course, I'm talking about Kobe Bryant. Kobe's retired. So, it's clear that we're entering into a new arena of basketball for the Lakers going forward. We do want to begin to win as quickly as possible. But first and foremost, we want to build a strong foundation. We want to make sure that we do this the right way, whether that's through the draft or through free agency or through the trade market. We do have more assets today than we did a year ago. So there are a lot more possibilities. And our goal, and I think Luke is on board, is to do it the right way, play exciting basketball, and provide a product to our fans and our viewers and our supporters that they're proud of.
Mitch, how difficult do you think it will be in his learning process or his developmental process, thinking about the Lakers, but also still trying to get the Warriors to get back and repeat as champions?
He's committed to the Warriors. There's no doubt. When I do talk to him, it's either early in the morning or late, in the evening. His days are solely committed to practice, to meetings, working with players, film work, 100% to the Warriors. And at this time, if he and I can speak for 3 or 4 minutes a day or text once or twice, that's a good day.
Did he express any concern about the several hires that the Lakers have had since Phil left? Luke.
What kind of hires do you mean?
I mean, because, like Mike D'Antoni.
Oh, coaches.
Yeah, the coaches.
Did he express any what?
And did he express any concern about why those coaches did not succeed?
No. Never came up.
I'm assuming that you guys, when you let Byron go, in making the decision to let Byron go, had candidates in mind, people you want to listen. Was Luke's potential availability beyond this year? If you waited longer than this summer, you might go somewhere. Did that influence your decision at all in terms of letting Byron go?
Yes.
Mitch, the record that Luke had or didn't have, against Steve, but the idea that he is coaching that team, how much that influenced your decision that this could be a good candidate for the Lakers?
Well, a big adjustment in our league, whether it's in the front office or on the bench, when you move over, the 18 inches, and during a timeout, if you're the assistant during a timeout, you're lobbing information and suggestions to the head coach, and when there's 10 seconds left in the timeout, everybody's looking at the head coach because the head coach has to make a decision. Okay, when you're in that seat as a head coach, everybody's looking at you, and that's a big difference between an assistant and a head coach. The good thing with Luke is that he did have 40 games or so experience as a head coach. He knows to manage the clock, timeouts, substitutions, draw plays. So although his body of work is limited to about a half a season, the fact that he actually has already done it, is a big plus, going forward in his coaching career. He knows what it takes, and he knows the decisions, and he's familiar with the decisions that have to be made during a game.
Just from what you know about Luke, and I guess specifically this conversation you had in Oakland, what makes you think that he can lead the young players, and what about developments and his ability to make guys better specifically?
Well, I think the generation, his generation is closer to the generation of players today. So maybe it's a good thing that he can, relate, certainly better than I could. And, he'll be traveling and, in the locker room, on the court. So I think that's a plus. It's not that long ago that he was playing. And that's not to say that you have to be a young person, who just quit playing basketball to be a head coach in this league or to be successful in this league. That's not the case at all. In fact, one of the most successful coaches in this league is older than I am. So, but I think that'll be a plus in this case. And I'm hopeful that, Luke can turn it into a tool that not only helps him coach the players on the team, but also helps us recruit players.
And if that's relating to players, how about just basketball X's and O's and that side of the development? That falls in the scope versus the general management and operations, I guess.
Well, I think it helps that Luke has experience as a head coach. So, when the clock is running down and the officials are blowing a whistle, or the buzzer goes off, and you got like 5 seconds to draw a play, he's done it before. He will be surrounded with experienced coaches. And I think more than ever, I think the front office will be more involved with development of a young coach. As long as I can remember, we've had veteran coaches here, I guess since Del Harris. Del Harris, Phil Jackson, Rudy Tomjanovich, Phil Jackson, Mike Brown, Mike D'Antoni, Byron Scott. So this is something new for us. And I expect to be more involved day to day than we've ever been in terms of the front office and what takes place down in the locker room.
Will that also include game strategy?
I don't, or we don't, sit with coaches that often when it comes to game plans. We like to hire people that we think can get the job done. Certainly, from time to time, I make myself available. We watch a lot of practices, and I think from time to time they may come to us and say, "Listen, Mitch, what do you think about this?" But they're going to have free reign, or Luke's going to have free reign to coach the team as he sees fit.
Is this a surprise to you how quickly Luke has ascended that coaching ladder? Was there a point when you played with the team you thought maybe, oh, this guy's going to be a great coach one day? Or is this just kind of more out of the blue?
Yeah, I think everybody's looked at Luke as the coach on the court, since he came here from Arizona, played the right way, seemed to be a good teammate, knowledge of the game, certainly growing up around the game. So I don't think anybody's surprised that Luke's a coach. In this league, things happen that you can't plan for sometimes. And I already mentioned, Pat Riley, just look back at how he became the head coach of the Lakers completely unexpectedly. And look where he is today. So those things happen. Part of that's out of your control. But I don't think anybody ever thought Luke would not be a good coach or coach one day.
When you talk about assistants with experience, are you talking head coach?
I think that's certainly a strong possibility. Yes.
And also, when it comes to when you go about searching for a new coach, how much weight do you put into having championship experience as a player and also having been a part of the Lakers organization?
I think it played a part in this decision. Certainly that we knew Luke and we didn't have to get to know him. He did work a little bit on our D-League team for a year, and then 2 years under a very, very, very successful coaching program. Had a lot to do with it. He's got a long way to go. There are going to be some bumps in the roads, and he's going to continue to learn as he goes along when he's making decisions. Coaching is an experience that the learning part of it never ends, but we have to provide the talents so that he can be most successful, and I think that's a partnership we're looking forward to.
The general perception, it seems like from here and certainly media perceptions, the Lakers is not what people call starter job, first job for a player, or for a coach. What for you guys, what changed in terms of your perception? And what does that mean? What do you think will be different about it?
Well, it's for the last 20 years. We felt we needed a veteran coach, and this is really the first opportunity to have a rebuild, a fresh new start or a new chapter, and accordingly, we decided that there would have been an opportunity to hire many veteran coaches. There aren't that many jobs in this league. I think our job's a great job, but there are a lot of coaches out there that would like to coach for the Lakers or even another NBA team. So the fact that something like this would come about and Luke would be available, we just thought it was the right move to make.
Is there some sense that you guys will have a little bit of flexibility to have a coach that can take a year or two and learn and make some mistakes like some of the players do?
Well, Luke's going to make mistakes, and it's our job to help him hire the staff to minimize those mistakes, and we also have to get the talent. There's a timeline between now and July 15th that we're excited about that's going to be challenging. We do like our core of young players. There could be a veteran, 2 or 3 that were on our team this year that we will pursue. So we think we have something to work with, versus a year ago we had less. And certainly financially, we have so much more this year than we did a year ago. But a lot of teams, because of the cap going up, are going to have flexibility. So it'll be very competitive and challenging, but we do have to provide better players going forward.
Did you talk to the young players since the hire, and what has their feedback been?
A couple of the players, they come in every day. Some of them are elsewhere right now. Luke has reached out to most of the players, and I was in the locker room the other day, and a couple of players didn't recognize Luke's number. And I told them what the number is, so they ended up, reaching out to Luke because Luke had reached out to them. So they've spoken, and connected.
You get the sense that this is somebody that young players are excited about and are excited to play for and learn about and feel an early connection with.
I didn't ask the guys, what do you think? It's not really for them to say. I would think they are. I think our players had a good relationship with Byron last year. As a player, a former player, I just, for me, whoever was coaching was coaching. I had a job to do, and I had 4 or 5 coaches, during my career, and to me it didn't matter. My job was to come to practice, ready to practice, come to games, ready to play, no matter who the coach was. So I don't get into it with the players about, what you think about the coach. That's our decision, and I would guess that, they're happy with, Luke as a coach. But that's really not a factor.
Mitch, what's going to make the big difference in acquiring free agents when before the Lakers would always take a chance because they could spend the extra money and go over the cap? Now everybody has about the same amount of money. What's going to make the big difference in getting those big-name free agents to come down?
Well, everybody's going to have room. And I'll call it financial flexibility. I'm not sure how many teams will have as much room as we will. There will be a couple. And sometimes in years past, with what they term max salaries, we could bring one of those players on board. This year, we can bring multiple players on board. But that doesn't mean that we're going to have the inside track to any one particular free agent. There'll be a lot of teams out there with the ability to add one player. So the players are going to decide where they want to go. There are financial considerations, and I think they do want to win. So, we have the natural advantage of living in a great city with great fans that I think will continue to be an advantage. Something that we have this year that we didn't have last year was maybe more talent, and I think free agents may look at us and they say, well, I like the group you have, and who else are you going to get this summer with me? And we have the ability to do that. So we could quickly go from a team that's young to a team that's young and has some veterans and hopefully win a bunch of games. But that's going to take some luck and a lot of hard work.
Jim said earlier this week that likes the amount of young players, and just about the right amount of young players. In theory, you could add 2 more to the draft if things go the right way. Are you comfortable coming back with the same group of young guys and adding 2 more to that mix?
Well, right now, all we have is the 32nd pick.
Not going to work.
And I'm not going to really talk about the other pick because we don't have it. And I mentioned earlier that I'm superstitious. I don't like the whole karma part of that. Not nearly as superstitious as my predecessor was, Jerry West. There's a light at the Forum, traffic light that he would never drive underneath. So I'm not that superstitious. Okay, but I'm superstitious enough not to want to talk about a pick we don't have.
So you're looking at it as a worst-case scenario. That's what you're going into.
That's how you have to plan, yes. And I'm fine either way. I'd love to have the pick. I want to keep the 32nd pick. But you have to look at it both ways. And if it doesn't work out where we get the pick next year. And we still have the ability to improve the team this summer.
Given that you have that one pick, how involved will he be with the draft process?
Probably not very involved. I know he's hoping to be in Oakland, until the middle or the end of June. And if that's the case, we'll send him flash drives of workouts. Today we had a workout, and we're FedExing it up to him today, and he'll take a look at it. If we can get some of his staff in place, they'll be here, they'll be watching the workouts. But those guys don't have the time to watch college games like we do, and typically coaching staffs don't get too involved.
Mitch, regarding those free agent meetings, are there some things you guys learned from the past couple of years that you feel like you do differently or just apply differently?
Well, you learn something every year. And last year and the year before, we did not have as much to sell as we do this year. And what I mean when I say that, this year I think we have more talent on the court to convince free agents it might be a good place to come play. And a year ago, we had enough money for one player. This year, we have enough money for multiple players. So that may be attractive to a free agent. You know, he looks at our team and he says, well, you have some nice young guys. And then he looks at the other part of the team and they say, well, we could use some veterans. And then I say, well, we can get some veterans. In fact, we can get another max guy or maybe two more max guys. So I think that makes a difference. The players do want to go someplace and be competitive. And I don't think last year and the year before, specifically with Kobe being as close to the end of his career as he was and the injury factor, not knowing how much or if he can play, I think that made a difference.
How do you approach that? Do you tell these guys this is who else we like, or do you ask them who you like better?
Well, that's for us to decide and use in our plan, roles when July 1st rolls around.
Have you had any reaction from agents out there about the signing of Luke and how they like it or they question it?
I think overall it's been positive. Based on the reception, from the media, and what I've read and what I've heard, I think agents overall have been, receptive to the hire. We can't talk to agents about free agents, so it's not like it's a conversation that takes place. Does your free agent like the fact we hired Luke? Those conversations can't take place. But we talk to the agents and the representatives all the time. Just scheduling a workout like today, you had to talk to 6 to 8 representatives just to schedule this. So you do have daily contact with them, and it's nice to get positive feedback. So, we're hopeful that, once again, going forward, Luke's hire not only translates into good coaching, but hopefully, something different in terms of helping us recruit free agents going forward. But really, if Luke doesn't have a lot to sell, it's hard to sell something. So it's incumbent on us as an organization to provide assets and pieces that makes it an easier sell. And once again, the fact that we have more players today than we did a year ago, we're hopeful for a good draft pick, and the financial flexibility, I think that makes it easier, to sell.
Is there anyone on this roster that is off limits in terms of your top trades?
In terms of getting better, nobody's off limits. We've had one player off limits for the last 20 years, but even he, 10 to 12 years ago, there were discussions, I'm sure everybody remembers, that involved him. So you have to listen. That's the job. As an organization looking to improve, you have to listen. You have to take phone calls, and if that does happen, that's a good thing. That means you have players that other teams want. That's a very positive situation to be in.
Broadly speaking, given that the roster is still very much another work in progress, how do you guys balance whether the draft or trades or free agency talent versus fit, where you might have a player who's a little bit more talented, but there's some redundancy versus that maybe fits a position a little bit?
Right. Yeah, there's a timeline right now. We just have to follow it. It's not like you can plot it out today and say this is what's going to take place July 1st. We have to. Next week is the Chicago pre-draft camp. After that, it's the lottery, and that's a key day because we know if we're going to get a pick or not, and that'll help us decide what to do going forward.
Is it generally favor talent? Go get the more talented players and figure out the rest?
Well, in the perfect world, you'd like to get talent that fits, what you're trying to do as a team. But you're not going to win without talent, period. And it's difficult to make trades if you don't have assets. So we're going to try to get players that have talent that fit our needs. Would we get to the point where we maybe compromise something that may not fit perfectly? I don't know right now. In this business, it's not a perfect world business. You're always compromising something, no matter what it is. But to try to predict what that is, it's impossible right now.
Mitch, how much pressure do you feel to get this thing turned around quickly when the team goes from where you are 17 wins to be a contender, or do you have to keep an eye on the long view?
I think that there's pressure every year on this organization. We've set such a high standard since it moved here in 1960. I've been here over 30 years now, and I've felt the pressure every year, and it's a good pressure. It's a pressure to provide a product to what I think are the best fans in the NBA. So one year is really no different than the next year to me. Even when you win a championship, it's almost like the next minute you're thinking about, well, can we repeat? And so there's always that kind of pressure. But it's a good thing, and I feel that once again our core group of players, we're much further along. There's a lot more excitement this year, and as much as I hate the fact that I won't see Kobe's name on the roster next year, I'm happy for him that he got through a season. His last 3 were injury-ridden, and I know he's ecstatic that he played 20 years and that he was able to get through the season. So that's a great thing. But going forward, it provides us, some certainty as to how we can plan and build a team.
Last question, guys.
Is it too early to know how you're going to pitch those free agents?
Yes, it's too early. We need to see about the pick. We need to get more familiar with the players. And I'm hopeful that we can make a pitch that includes a dramatic improvement in a team and not just a slow build.